Hello. Okay, so today I have a very special treat for you. It is a long episode, so you may need to listen to this one in a couple parts. But last week I had a coaching open house that I had so much fun doing. I knew I needed to share this on the podcast if you weren't there. And I shared it exclusively with the people who are on my email list. So if you didn't hear about it, you might not be on my email list. If you want to make sure you don't miss any events like this in the future, you can go to dinacataldo.com/ first to know. There you can enter your name and your email address, and you will be sure to get all the goodies in the future. That's dinacataldo.com/ first to know. But inside that coaching open house, I really talked about the subconscious and what it takes to begin reprogramming the subconscious so that you can create the life and the law practice that you want. And I shared a lot of stories from lawyers that I've worked with over the years. And I really wanted, and I think I accomplished this as I put together the stories that I really thought would inspire you, that you would relate to, that you could see yourself in, and begin to see that you can accomplish anything, that what you want matters, that you have the power to create these things in your life too. And so that's what I wanted to create here, was something that can really inspire you, really motivate you, like no matter what kind of practice you have. So I hope you enjoy this. It was a lot of fun to put together, and I really hope you enjoy it. So without further ado, let's jump in. Welcome. Welcome to my very first coaching open house. I'm really excited to do this. I'm really excited to talk to you about what coaching is all about and really give you a lot of stories about making the impossible possible. Because I know that if you're here, you really want something. There's something in your life you really want, whether it's to stop procrastinating, to go after that promotion, to go after creating that new business on top of your law practice, to do something that right now feels impossible. And so here I want to talk to you about doing the impossible and give you examples of it and how I do it through the coaching program. So I'm really excited that you're here. Also, what I want to share with you are a couple bonuses you're going to hear about. So, one bonus is if you want to take this journey and you want to book a strategy session with me, I want to offer you a special bonus that is going to help you get clarity. And I'm going to talk more about that in a little bit. And then there's a second bonus that I'm going to be sharing with you that is brand new to my one-on-one clients. If you decide you want to sign up with me, you'll get it too. But it is something I haven't even told them about yet. So you are hearing it first. I'm really excited about this. So before we jump in, if you don't know me, my name's Dina Cataldo. I am a master certified coach. I was a criminal prosecutor for almost 16 plus years. I was doing everything from, DUI trials to homicide trials. I did the whole gamut there. And I did a lot of negotiating court. It was all kinds of things. And when I was 29 years old, it was about 3 years into my career there, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And it really helped me put things into perspective and understand there was a different way of being in my law practice than stressed out and overwhelmed. I didn't even realize that I didn't have to feel anxiety in my body. It had become so normal that it wasn't even something that was a blip on my radar anymore. And maybe you can relate to this, but I knew I needed something different because chemo felt like a vacation. It was so relaxing. It was very confusing to me. It did not make sense to me. But I had been stressing for years and I didn't even know how it was impacting me, not just physically, but mentally. And so I knew I wanted something different. I just had no clue how to do it. It seemed so impossible to change. I mean, I was so entrenched in the habits that I had, working late nights, working weekends, always feeling like I needed to work or that I wasn't working enough. Like I always had this guilt that I wasn't working hard enough. And it was preventing me from really, A, just enjoying my life, but B, feeling confident and competent in my law practice. And I know a lot of lawyers that I talk to feel the same way, and you might feel the same way too. So that was the old me. And then I found coaching. And I'm going to share with you a lot about that today, obviously, open house. But when I found coaching, I started to recognize why I had all these old patterns. And it was because that's just what I was taught. I was taught that I needed to work late nights and I needed to work weekends, and that was just what you do. And I accepted all of that. I never questioned any of it. And I never questioned how I needed to feel in my body. I thought it was just anxiety and stress. That was just what it was to be a lawyer. But I started to do things and I started to create my own business. And I started to realize that the old patterns that I had in the law practice were not going to serve me in my business. So I needed to change everything. I didn't do it all at once. It was not one of those overnight things. It doesn't work that way. But I started to see my patterns and I started unraveling them. And we're going to talk a lot about that today and how I work with people to help them do just that. So, I want to share something with you, and I've been sharing it a lot in the podcast. If you don't listen to Be a Better Lawyer podcast already, I'll let you know about that. It is a resource for you. But one of the things I talk a lot about is how what you want matters. And that's a pattern that I have seen when my clients that I start working with, when they come to me, they don't believe that what they want matters. And they're the ones telling me later, oh, yeah, I didn't realize that I wasn't giving myself what I needed and that what I want mattered. And so I want to share that with you in case you've never thought about it. It seems like such an obvious thing that what we want matters, but what we want isn't always acted on. And so you might want things, but you not might not be acting on them. And so I'm going to share with you why that is in just a second. And it's going to make a lot more sense because I think we're really hard on ourselves when we're not creating the results that we want in our practice. We're really hard on ourselves when we're not billing what we want. We're really hard on ourselves when we're not creating what we want. And I want you to know this is a normal starting place, right? This is very normal. You're in the right place no matter what kind of lawyer you are. If you're experiencing anything like this, overwhelm, right? Fatigue, stress, anxiety, you're in the right place. Okay. And we're going to talk all about why what's happening is happening. So, the way I want to do this, excuse me, the way I want to do this is really tell this through stories, stories of lawyers that I've worked with. So, I'm going to tell you a lot of stories today. And I think that when you start, this is for me anyway, when I hear stories about what's possible for me, it excites me, it motivates me. And I want you to feel excited. I want you to feel motivated because when you start to see what's possible, you begin to believe, yeah, I can take different action and something different will happen. But I also want to share this. There are mechanisms in the brain that make it really hard to change. And I'm going to share some of those with you. And I'm going to share some of what I do to help start knocking down some of those mechanisms. Because really, what we want to do is we want a brain that is working well together. Okay. Because there's two main parts of our brain I'm going to be talking about today, which is the subconscious and the prefrontal cortex. And we want those two parts to work in harmony. And I'm going to share with you how you can do that. So, what I'm going to do is share my screen. Oh, and I also want you to know this. So, the bonuses that I'm talking about, if you're watching the replay, that they're going to be available to you too. So, I want you to know that you'll get those too if you're watching this replay. Okay, so let me share my screen. All right. Okay. So this is what I'm going to share today. It's our roadmap for our open house today. So I'm going to share with you the mechanism in our brains that makes it so difficult to change old habits and achieve our goals, and why coaching is effective at helping lawyers change their habits and stop procrastinating to achieve their desires, and what my specific coaching program gives you that you can't get anywhere else. You're going to see the bonuses you get when you work with me one-on-one and a brand new bonus that I have created for the lawyers I work with that will help you focus on getting things done in your practice. So why is it so hard to change? Well, what you and I see on the surface is like the tip of the iceberg here. What we see every day is what we're doing and what we're not doing. Are we billing? Are we not billing? Are we rushing around? Are we procrastinating? We're seeing all the stuff on the surface, all the things that we are doing or not doing in the world, all our behaviors, right? We see ourselves doing the work or not doing the work. But there's something else underneath all of the actions that we're taking. And that's our subconscious. And the subconscious is the main driving force of everything that we do. It is where it houses all of our habits. So if you think about when you first learned how to drive, you had to think about it, right? It took some work, it took some effort. Maybe, I had a manual transmission when I was learning. And so I needed to really like figure it out. And it took a lot of work. It was very frustrating at first, right? But then everything became easier. And as it became easier, I no longer had to think about it. Same with you, right? So if you drive to the supermarket, you drive to the office, you probably zone out. You no longer think about it anymore. That's because everything you learned about driving has been relegated to your subconscious. You no longer think about it. It's not something you need to think about it. And that's a mechanism that our brain uses to make our lives easier, to really make it so that we don't have to use so much energy thinking about how to drive, how to shift, where to turn, when to turn the blinker on, right? It is a mechanism to help us in so many ways. But unfortunately, if we're not paying attention, it can also lead our lives in a direction that we're not so happy with. Our subconscious is something that, we don't know a whole lot about, right? Our brain, we don't have a lot of science around it, but we do know a few things. We know one thing, which is called the motivational triad. And this is really one way that our brain works. And it is our subconscious brain that wants a few things, and it is going to make us behave in ways consistent with this unless we start creating awareness and we start strengthening the muscle of our prefrontal cortex. I'm going to talk to you about that in a second. So, our subconscious brain wants three things: it wants to feel safe, it wants to feel pleasure, and it wants to preserve energy. Those are the main driving forces behind how our subconscious influences our behavior. So, for instance, if you're an entrepreneur, right, if you own your own business or you want to own your own business, you are not going to necessarily feel safe a lot of the time. And so the subconscious habits are inconsistent with what it takes to be an entrepreneur because you do have to do things that feel a little scary sometimes. Or if you are, procrastinating on things, it's not because you're a bad person. It's because your brain, your subconscious brain, is pursuing pleasure. It wants something pleasurable. It makes a lot of sense if you're at the end of the month and you're billing and you don't want to bill and you keep putting it off. It makes a lot of sense. Your subconscious doesn't want to bill. It's not a fun thing, right? Your brain's saying, this isn't fun. Why do I want to do this? Let's go play on the internet. So know that this is just something that's driving behaviors. And it also wants to preserve energy. So this is something that you might see when you procrastinate. You might feel horrible, but your brain is like, well, why would I want to do that? I'm so comfortable here, right? I'm very pleased, right? I don't need to do any extra energy expenditure. I'm fine. Right. So just notice these things play out, and that's just how the subconscious works. It also has a negativity bias. So it will lean towards, I can't do something because I don't have enough time, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough energy, I don't know enough, I'm not certain about, right? Like there's all these different things that our brain leans toward. Why? Because we have a leaning towards safety and preserving energy and pleasure. And when we are trying to do something new, it's uncomfortable. It requires an expenditure of energy, right? It requires that maybe you're a little uncomfortable instead of just in pleasure mode, sitting on the couch, eating potato chips, right? So negativity bias is a real thing. And If you ever notice yourself having a difficult time getting yourself moving on something, or you find yourself really beating yourself up because you're not taking as much action towards whatever it is that you want, it's because the negativity bias is strong right now. Another symptom of the negativity bias showing up in your life is indecision. So if you notice yourself second guessing yourself, if you notice yourself having a lot of self-doubt, and if you notice yourself taking a long time to make decisions, it's a result of the negativity bias, right? It's going like, okay, what is it? What am I supposed to do? And you freeze. It's also a reason why sometimes we procrastinate and we just sit there frozen instead of making a decision. So the subconscious, it literally means below awareness. Okay, we don't know what's happening, right? Until maybe you come to this open house and you start to see some of this in yourself. And really, how we see the subconscious at work is by observing our patterns of behavior. And the very first thing I begin talking to my clients about when we first, in our very first session, is I talk about how to become the observer of your patterns of behavior. Because my goal is for you to be able to see your actions and not judge them, to see yourself procrastinating and not beat yourself up, just to notice it. You can do this right now. If you notice this in your day-to-day life, don't beat yourself up. Just notice that it's happening. Just notice. It doesn't mean anything about you. You're not a bad person. You're not incapable. You're a lawyer, so I know you're capable. But there's certain subconscious mechanisms happening in our brains that can make it more difficult to move forward in the direction that we want to go. So, but the judgment, when we start judging ourselves, it makes it next to impossible to change things. And so that's why one of the very first things that I teach my clients is stop judging yourself. Stop telling yourself you're lazy, that you should be working harder, that you're not capable. Like, stop judging yourself and telling all of yourself all of these things, because it is going to prevent you from just being the observer and seeing what's happening. That's part of the work that we do, is to just begin becoming the observer of your life, not the judger of your life. Now, one of the tools that I use in order to help them become the observer in their life is the model. And the model really helps us make our unconscious conscious, right? We make our subconscious conscious in a different way. So, one way to observe our subconscious in action is just by observing how we behave. What are the usual habits that we do? Do we usually snap at somebody at the same time every day? Do we procrastinate on the same thing every day? Those kinds of things. But another way to do it is start to get some insight into the thoughts that are creating this. Okay. So the model helps make those thoughts visible so we can then reprogram our mind to create what we want and not just repeating the old patterns and behaviors. Okay. Because those old patterns and behaviors got you where you are, but you might need to, I'm going to rephrase that. You definitely need to start changing those patterns and behaviors, but the subconscious oftentimes puts up those roadblocks. So this is what the model is, just to give you an idea. If you're familiar with the life coach school, that's where I got certified through. I got master certified through them. And the model is really the life coach school's way of articulating something that has been known by philosophers and psychologists for hundreds of years. Okay, that this is just how our brain works. This is how it works in the world. So there's 5 elements to the world. There's circumstances, and those circumstances are just things that happen in the world. It could be a person crossing the street. It could be you received a mail. You received mail from opposing counsel. It's just a fact. It's very neutral. There's no feelings involved around it. The sky is blue. Okay. 12 jurors could agree on it. Okay. A thought is our interpretation of that circumstance. Oh, it's a beautiful day today. Oh, it should be raining today. Oh, I can't believe that opposing counsel said those words to me, right? And then that thought in our brain activates neurons. right? And then those neurons in turn activate chemicals in our body that then create a feeling. So chemicals are what is creating the anxiety, the stress, the overwhelm. It's not a letter from opposing counsel. It's actually chemicals in our body that are caused by neurons in our brain. And then when we have a thought, then we have a feeling, and those feelings are what influence how we behave in the world, all of our actions, all of our patterns. So you see how this works? Like everything comes from the root. Like this is the coaching I do is called causal coaching. So causal coaching is getting to the root of the issue and cleaning it up. So when you have a thought about something happening in the world, that's going to generate a feeling in your body. And then that is going to cause you to do something. So, for instance, if you feel angry that opposing counsel said words, you're going to complain about it. You're going to maybe snap a nasty email back at them or wish you had, or right, you write an email and you delete it, that kind of thing. And then what is the result that you create? Well, that result is always going to reflect what you think. And so if you think you can't make a lot of money, if you think you can't make partner, if you think it's impossible for you to get along with that opposing counsel, if you think it's impossible to get on top of your caseload, the result is always going to reflect exactly what you think, because that's the subconscious at work. It's always creating your reality. It's just how it works. It's our patterns and behaviors, and they all start with what we think. And I'm going to talk to you more about this as I talk to you about these stories I'm going to share with you from my clients. So what we want to do is we want to strengthen your prefrontal cortex. That prefrontal cortex is the part of our brain that can direct us. So if you've ever been in a situation where you are of two minds of something, you literally are, right? So part of your brain is thinking along the lines of the subconscious, right? The subconscious brain is thinking, oh, that's going to be really hard, or that's going to take a lot of time, or, this isn't the right time right now. It doesn't seem right. And so that part of our brain is putting into process those patterns of preserving energy, safety, and creating pleasure, right? But then there's that prefrontal cortex. And I like to call the prefrontal cortex our higher self. It's our higher self that has this knowing. And I felt it a lot when I wanted to create a business. And when I felt that, it was crazy. Like my brain was like, this is crazy. Why would you ever do this? You're making plenty of money as a lawyer. You should be happy. You just keep doing it. Everybody else is doing it. But there was this part of me that just kept saying like, no, this is something you're supposed to do. This is going to be good. But it felt so hard because I didn't know anything about business. I didn't know anything about marketing. I didn't know anything about this stuff. So I felt like I thought to myself, why is there part of me that really wants this? And I started questioning my subconscious brain. I didn't know that's what I was doing at the time, but that's what I was doing. And so I wanted this thing. I knew it was possible. I saw other people doing it, but I felt like I was being dragged down by all of the subconscious beliefs. And I had to work through that. And a coach helped me with that, start to unravel some of that because I was in deep. Because you got to imagine, like the subconscious, it's formed when you're a kid, but you're also getting information and it's being absorbed into your subconscious all the time. So all those messages we get from the news, from society, from, everybody's telling us, oh, this is bad and this is good. And this is how the world is going. And this is bad and this is good. And so our brain just picks all of this up, including messages we get within the legal culture. Well, you got to grind hard and you got to stay late in order to get things done. And, you want everybody to believe that you're the hardest worker in the office. And how you do that is by doing it this way, working really late, coming in on weekends. And I fell into that. And so I really believed that. And I needed to unravel that before I could take some of the steps I needed to create the life that I have now. And so what I think about coaching, I think of it as a workout program for your prefrontal cortex. So when your higher self is speaking to you versus your subconscious self, and you're able to follow your prefrontal cortex more than the subconscious. So for me, I was mired in deep, right? You got to figure I was in there for 15 years. Prior to that, I was, law school, university, schooling, like all of that, that it was all telling me I needed to work hard and I needed to do things a certain way. And that's how you be successful. And that's how people are going to think you're a success. And you need to make X amount of dollars in order to be successful. That was my whole life. And so for me, I needed coaching to help me work out my prefrontal cortex so I could break out of those structures. So I could start to see, oh, wait a minute, it is possible for me to manage my time. It is possible for me to do things like build a business on top of my law practice. Now, you may not be thinking about starting a new business on top of your law practice, but if you have a practice where you're thinking about, gosh, I'm so behind on my billing, I just can't get it done, your subconscious is driving you because you're not actively bringing your prefrontal cortex in. And the prefrontal cortex is not about willpower. Okay. One of the things I hear so often from lawyers is they think the solution is more willpower. They just got to like tough it out. No. The amazing thing is, because I used to believe that too. And the amazing thing is the working out the prefrontal cortex has nothing to do with willpower. What it has to do with is beginning to understand, yes, when I think this, I feel anxious. When I think this, I feel calm. And what I need to do is every time this particular situation comes up, like billing, is I need to start reminding myself of this mindset instead of that mindset. Like that's what I work with my clients on. It's about mindset. It's about understanding the mechanisms that are happening in your brain every single time billing comes up, every single time a certain client comes into the office and you don't want to lose your stuff over them, right? So it's really starting to gain this awareness, so much so that your prefrontal cortex, your higher awareness, now has more power. So you're more empowered to take the actions that you want. You're less likely to procrastinate because you're not judging yourself for procrastinating, right? So your prefrontal cortex, when you start to exercise that, you're going to judge yourself a heck of a lot less and you're going to feel so much better and you're going to want to take action. All right, so I want to ask you this question. What seems impossible to change right now? There could be so many different things, but I listed a few that I have heard. And if you resonate with any of them, let me know in the Q&A. So maybe what seems impossible to you is to get all your hours billed, maybe sending out bills on time, managing demanding clients, keeping your temper. Have you ever been in a situation where you're like, why did I just snap at that person? Your subconscious was enacting certain patterns. They're just subconscious. Spending time with your significant other without being distracted by email or something that's going on at the office. Growing your practice with clients you actually want. I have a client right now who is starting to change her whole fee structure and starting to say no to clients that aren't in her ideal category because they're taking up a lot of her time and they're not necessarily casework that she wants to do. And that takes time, right? Because she was in the subconscious habit of taking anybody who wanted her. Oh, a friend of a friend recommended you. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll take you. I'll take you. And she didn't even stop to recognize what she wanted. Because remember, what you want matters, but she never stopped to ask herself, what did she want? And so this is where this comes in. Managing your caseload, that might be something that seems impossible for you to change right now, because you might be constantly worrying about it. Maybe making partner. I'm going to tell you about my client, Jackie, who didn't even think she could be partner. And then also maybe leaving the law to create your own business. And aside from me, there's another lawyer I'm going to share with you her story and how she actually recently left her job after we worked together. We worked together for about a year and she's been working on herself and she got herself into a position where she could leave her law practice. Now I want to ask you this. Those patterns that you saw, those were all patterns. If those were things that you saw happening in your life, those are patterns. What is holding on to these patterns costing you? What are they costing you in terms of your romantic relationship? What are they costing you in terms of time? Time to be with yourself, time to be with your friends, your family. What is it costing you financially to hold on to some of this? Because when we struggle with time management, what I also see people do is struggle with money management. And so when you're struggling in these areas, if you're not managing your time, you're losing your money. I have another client, he noticed he was spending something like 20 hours a month, really getting all of his billing together, putting it in the system, billing his clients, all of that. And he had like a 250 an hour billing rate. And so when we added it all up, I think it was something like $6,000 a month, $5,000 a month, something like that. And so he was not delegating this to his office manager, despite the fact that she was more than capable. He believed she was more than capable. And we had to work on some trust issues because his subconscious was telling him that he couldn't trust her. His logic was telling him that he could trust her, but there was a gap. Okay. And that's the gap that we work in when we work together is closing the gap so that the subconscious isn't running your life. Your subconscious isn't running your law practice because you want the prefrontal cortex running your life and your law practice. And so by the end of the day, it was costing him something like $60,000 a year to hold on to that billing practice instead of letting it go and trusting his office manager. So before we move on, this picture I took with my client Jackie, and she and I have been working together for a couple of years now. And we had the opportunity to meet up in person a couple times. Once was in Miami, where she is, and once was in Sacramento, where I am. This picture was taken in Miami. And I got to tell you, one of my favorite things about doing this work is I get to meet a lot of you in person. And it's so much fun because for me, I love coaching online, but I'm a hugger. Okay. I'm a hugger. I want to say hi to people and be in person with them. So it's a real pleasure when I get to do that. All right. So who have I helped? I have helped partners, solo firm owners, boutique firm owners, associates, in-house counsel, big law partners, trial attorneys, you name it. And I've done it in all kinds of areas, including estate planning, family law, pharmaceuticals, M&A law, criminal defense, personal injury, insurance, bankruptcy, landlord tenant, all of the areas, right? So it doesn't matter what kind of law you practice because everything I'm telling you is applicable to you. Like we all have human brains. This is all how we function. And then it's just up to us to learn these things because nobody teaches us this when we're kids. And they didn't know it, right? It's not our parents' fault. They didn't know this unless you had like a psychologist growing up. Maybe they knew this. I did not have psychologists raising me. So, but maybe you had more of this information than I did. So I want to start talking to you about some of my client stories and how we work together and some of the struggles they had and some of the achievements they made. I really want to show you what's possible when you start recognizing the subconscious happenings, right? The patterns that you have, and you're able to re-energize, reactivate, strengthen your prefrontal cortex. So this is my client Allison, and she and I work together. And I did a podcast episode with her, episode 289, if you want to listen to that. But she and I started working together, and when she came to me, she had a few concerns. One is she was several months behind on her billing. She felt really guilty about it, and it was I don't know, it was thousands. I know it was in the tens of thousands, maybe it was 10,000. It was something like that. But she wasn't sending it out and she hadn't made any plans to send it out. In fact, she was just going to write it all off because she was really embarrassed, right? She said she didn't want, she felt bad that she hadn't sent these out. What would her clients think? Like she didn't want her clients to think anything bad of her. She didn't want them to believe she wasn't capable. But I want you to see what was happening just with that particular issue, right? It was a subconscious pattern that was showing up. She was concerned about what other people thought of her. She was concerned that she wasn't enough, right? She wasn't capable, right? Those are just subconscious things that most of us carry around. I know I carry some of those around. I just have more consciousness of them now. Doesn't mean I don't have these thoughts, right? So just because you're aware that this is how the subconscious is working doesn't mean that suddenly you don't have these thoughts. They still show up. It's just you're more aware of them and they're not driving your life. So once you have more awareness of them, then you don't have to let them drive your life. So we started working together on this and we got to a point where she was like, "Hey, okay, I've got the letters together. I've made time to do it. and I've squared it away and I've sent them off. And this was a little message she sent me. She said, every single client paid promptly upon receipt of the invoice, some even with nice little thank you notes. So grateful for Dina's coaching. And I just want to share this with you because so many stories we make up in our brain about what people are going to think about us, what they're going to do when they find out we're not perfect, right? We make up all of these stories. These are our thoughts, our interpretations. And then we feel so embarrassed or we feel so much shame that the actions that we have are to not send out billings that are to, and it's to cheat ourselves of the work that we've put into these clients, into this work to help people. And if we're cheating ourselves, it's going to end up in a result of we're just cheating ourselves all around, right? Whether it's money, whether it's emotionally, right? So it's just noticing more and more what's going on in your subconscious. Now, one of the things I also want to share with you about the work we do in coaching is that when you do this, you can also really improve your client's experience. And I'm really big on improving my client's experience. I want to give the best service possible. I want to give them, red carpet service, white glove treatment, however you want to call it. I really want them to feel supported and cared about because they are. And I know you want to make people around you feel supported and cared about too, whether it is if you own a practice, then you want your client to feel that way. If you work within a firm, the way you show value to your boss is to create that for them. Do they feel supported? Do they feel like they can trust you because you've got this, right? So they're your client. So I just want you to kind of notice this, that you can actually create a better experience. Allison created a better experience for her clients by sending out those bills. Like I think some of them were even 6 months old. And the thing is that our clients, the story we make up in our head is like, oh my God, they're going to think I'm imperfect. They're going to hate me. They're going to think I'm incompetent, all of these things. But in reality, what can be happening is that the client says, gosh, I wonder where that bill is. Oh my gosh, I hope I didn't miss it. They're like worried, right? They're like, oh my gosh, I need to make sure that I have money set aside for this. And like, so it's on the back of their mind. They're thinking about this. Like, I owe her for services and I haven't heard anything. Okay. Right. So we can put their mind at ease by simply sending out a bill. And so if this is you right now, I want to offer you that mindset shift to just be like, oh, maybe it's not about me being imperfect. Maybe I can shift my focus into how my clients are feeling. Like, what is it that my clients need? How can I better serve my client? Sending out that bill is really going to put them at ease. So that's just something that I want to share with you about Allison. And now I want to share with you Shannon. So Shannon was also on the podcast. She was in episode 248, if you want to go and listen to her and I talk about, all things law. She is a trial attorney. And this is one of the things she said in that podcast. Everyone just goes in to trial with the expectation that you're on 24/7 and you'll sleep when you're done and you'll eat when you're done. And I did that for a trial. And yeah, it ended up going well, but man, I was miserable. And I probably could have done things better. And I could think of a million ways we could have done things differently. But just going into the second trial, because she did a second trial right after that one, with the concept that you can actually have a start and a stop time for working at trial was a new concept for me. But I realized it was going to help me do a better job. And this was something that we worked on because I knew she had a busy trial year, right? She had back-to-back trials. And, as a trial attorney, I know that how easy it is to fall into this 24/7 trap. And so what we did was really talk through like how it doesn't have to be that way. Because while I was a trial attorney, I implemented what I learned in coaching to my trial. And I saw a night and day difference in how I showed up, giving myself parameters for when I worked and really like allowing myself to take breaks. Like I did yoga every single day. I turned off everything at night. I did not work on the trial at night. Like I really gave myself parameters. And the only way I could do that is because I had worked on my subconscious for a long time, figuring out what it is I needed, what I wanted, all of that. And then I used what I learned and I implemented it in trial. And that's what Shannon learned. Because before we even got to this point where we were working on trials, we were just working on her time management and her emotional management because she was stressed out, she was overwhelmed, she was anxious. Her husband had even come to her and said, "Look, things have got to change." And that's why she reached out to me. So this is something that it it is possible for you. I want you to know that this is 100% within your reach. If you're feeling stressed out at the office, whether you're a trial attorney or not, you can begin to learn how to manage your mind so that you can create what you want to create. And so if you're a trial attorney, we worked through a whole process, and I think we talked about that a little bit in the podcast. So if you are a trial attorney, you can go tune into that. But we talked about this process that we went into to review her first trial so that then we could go into her second trial and we could design it exactly the way she wanted it to. And I also want to talk about attorney retention because if you've ever been in a law office, this is something that is of concern. I know in my office, lots of people left, and I know why. But it's something that law offices are not paying attention to, but Shannon was acutely aware of in her firm because she knew that if everybody was going to be worked 24/7 all the time, the associates would not want to stay there. They would leave for greener pastures. And so, what Shannon has been trying to do is really bring in those concepts she learned in coaching and bring it to her associates, helping them create lives for themselves versus like being in this go, go, go mode. Because if you are, you're going to drain yourself, you're going to burn out, and you're going to blame the legal career, the legal profession versus just being able to take control, take responsibility of what you can take responsibility of and change your life that way. Because she didn't change her firm, she changed herself. It's not the firm, it's us. Like we have got to be the ones to create change because our firms aren't necessarily going to implement things that are going to be beneficial to us. And even if they do, if we're not changing our subconscious, we're not going to do those things. I remember in my practice, they had implemented something like walk days or something. It's like, and everybody just kind of scoffed at those. Like, that's so dumb. Like, why would you ever do that? And nobody wanted to go on these walks because everybody said, well, if they see you on this walk, people are going to make fun of you. They're going to think you're a slacker, right? So nobody wants to do those things. We actually have to just care about what we think, stop caring about what other people think. And that takes work. It takes working on the subconscious and really exercising that prefrontal cortex. Okay, so now let's talk about Jackie. And I introduced you to her at the very beginning, but she came to me feeling super overwhelmed in her practice. She was behind on her billing. She noticed she was staying up till like 2 in the morning to try to finish her billing. She felt totally a mess. And she also felt like there was absolutely no way she could make partner. Like it was just beyond her reach because she thought she was such a mess. But here's what we started to do, right? We started working on her time management, but we didn't do it by just saying, here's a calendar, use this calendar, because it doesn't work. I could hand you a calendar and you would never use it because subconscious patterns, right? So we worked there first. We had to really start diving into that and seeing what was coming up. And so I think so often when I talk about time management, people think it's like, okay, now I'm going to teach you how to be really strict with your calendar and how to like really have some willpower around it. But what I'm actually doing is I'm just introducing you to different concepts to start loosening up your subconscious and bringing up some of those beliefs and challenging those beliefs and shifting those beliefs. So then you can begin to start using your calendar. And it doesn't mean perfection the first time. We go through evaluation processes that I help you with to help you really learn how to manage your time, what subconscious patterns are really preventing you from moving forward the way you want to, from getting things done the way you want to. So I just want to share with you that it is not an impossible task. Like Jackie was spending like hours and hours and hours, and she still wasn't getting enough billing done during the day to really bill. And so we worked on that. And we talk about that in episode 290 if you want to go listen to her episode, because that can really show you what's possible in terms of billing. And this is something that she said during that podcast. She said, I would spend countless hours and sometimes a couple days just ruminating on what didn't go right instead of taking that time to say, okay, this is what happened. We'll deal with it with how it happened later, but let's figure out the solution to the problem now. and things get done much faster and with less suffering. And that's the power of really exercising that prefrontal cortex and really understanding, I know how to problem solve. I don't need to worry about this or be angry about this thing or how this person did this thing. It's like, okay, we're going to time out on that. Let's just problem solve for where we are now and move forward. And then we can always circle back and address that later. And this is my client, Nancy. So, Nancy and I also did an episode. It doesn't have a number, it's just a bonus episode. And so, she and I met up in Nashville when I was at CleoCon. And Nancy is out in Chattanooga. So, she was like I think it's like an hour drive from her. So, she came out and we got to hang out and grab lunch. And we did a little podcast together while she was there. And when we first met, she felt really behind. She felt like she wasn't healthy, right? Like she wasn't going on the walks like she wanted to. She wasn't active. She felt a little, down about things, and she really couldn't see how her life could be better, but she thought, okay, she like took a chance on coaching and we started working together. And this is what she said during the podcast. She said, if I look at where I was versus where I am now, I am making more money. I do have a productive business, but I'm a much happier and healthier person. And that's really what's important. It's a Monday and I'm here in Nashville and my office is operating without me. I told myself when I went to law school, I didn't want to be chained to a desk, but so many lawyers, including me before, are chained to a desk thinking, oh crap, I got to work until 7:30 tonight in order to get this done. That's no way to live. And so we had really worked on a lot of processes within her practice. And something that she accomplished during our time together, because we're still working together, we've been working together for years. But one thing that she wanted to do was to work 4 days a week instead of 6 days a week. And she did that. And then at one point, she got to a place where she's like, you know what? I am ready to take on my new project. And so right now she's started a brand new podcast. It's called Boomer Time. I recommend you listen to it. And it's something that she had really had a passion about helping people and helping people specifically through the aging process. And so she made it happen, but she made the time for it. And then she found the way to do it. And that was by really seeing the subconscious, because it's not as if she didn't have any of these thoughts come up about self-doubt or, how she thought about herself or what would people at her office think or any of that stuff. But she decided she was going to do this. She was going to follow her prefrontal, her higher self, and do what she knew she was feeling called to do. And it's a difficult thing to do, right? It's a difficult thing to really follow that voice until you get the practice doing it. And that's what coaching really gives you. It's the opportunity to practice that in a way that's safe, because we want to create safety for your subconscious to take these actions, because that's what it really wants. It really wants safety. It really wants to feel secure. And it doesn't always feel safe making these big moves, but we take small moves to show it's safe to make the bigger moves. And then I also want to bring up with Nancy's practice how she is starting to even improve her clients' experiences. So one of the things that we started talking about when we were talking about systems, I started asking her about what are some of the common things that happen when kids come to you, when the kids of the parents that you've been servicing, their parent dies, and the kids come to you, like what's happening there? What are some of their frustrations? And she started saying, well, or what are some of your frustrations? And she said, well, sometimes they won't have the keys to the house. Sometimes they won't have this document. Sometimes they won't have that document. And I have to do X, Y, and Z. And I said, okay, well, let's make your life easier and their lives easier. What can you do in your initial consult with the parent to help you solve these problems? And she started saying things like, oh, well, I can make sure that they know all of these issues for the kids, that they're alerting the kids to where all the documents are, and that I make a package for them that includes everything, including how to get in contact with me, what things they're going to need when they come to my office. Like everything's there ahead of time. So she's able to even further give her clients white glove service by thinking about these things ahead of time. But you can't problem solve for these kinds of things when you feel overwhelmed, stressed out, and anxious about your caseload. Like you cannot get to these higher level problems until you start solving for those. And Nancy and I had solved for those years ago. And so once she solved for that, then we could start dealing with all the higher level problems in her practice. So it got to start somewhere. Depending on where you are, you might be starting with time management, and then you can get to those higher level problems. And then I want to introduce you to Kimberly. So Kimberly was on my podcast in 242, and she said on that episode, with coaching, what I came to realize is sometimes my favorite sessions were where I just showed up and said, "What's going on in my life?" And we identified something to work through. And as you go through your day and your weeks, you start recognizing what's coming up, and then you can put that into practice, what you've talked about in the session. So it's not a burden. It's not extra time on your plate. It's really just putting into practice what you learned in session, which is going to help you with your time. So one of the things I hear is, like this fear is like, it's going to take a lot of time. How much work is it going to be? And what I want to share with you is that our sessions are once a week. And so in those sessions, we're taking on some topic, something that you're dealing with. Or if you don't come to a session with something, that's not a problem. I've got plenty to talk about. I don't know if you notice in this open house, but I can talk, right? I was a lawyer for a long time. I can talk. So I know what questions to ask you. I have experience doing this. So I just pull stuff out of you. And it's like, okay, let's talk about that. Let's deal with that. Let's look at that. And so we can break down subconscious patterns that are showing up in your life and break them down so you take yourself to the next level. And it doesn't take like pages of homework, right? It doesn't take notebooks. All it takes is for you to have that awareness and you to bring it into your week, aware and observing how you are being in the world and changing those little things here and there just by virtue of noticing them. Kareen, so Kareen, she and I started working together and she said, I was completely overwhelmed. I felt like a hamster on a wheel. I knew something had to change. And she had a to-do list, which I know you probably have a to-do list too. And she thought the to-do list was just fine. I mean, she felt overwhelmed and anxious, but she was fine. But she realized after she worked with me that that to-do list was not actually working. Right. And she said, coaching has saved my life professionally and in many ways personally. Now I can do what I love in a way that is healthy and helps me grow without the stress. And that was something that I think I struggled for a really long time, is just not knowing why I felt so stressed out. I really thought it was the work. I really thought it was everything that was on my to-do list. I really thought it was everything that was in my inbox until I didn't, until I started to recognize, oh, that's just what I've always believed. That's been my subconscious belief. It's been my conscious belief, right? It's like, oh, I think it's the work doing this. And that left me powerless to change anything. And as long as we think that the power to change is outside of us, we cannot change because the power to change is within us. We've got to be the ones to be the catalyst for change because things at the office aren't going to change, right? If you're a lawyer and you want to stay a lawyer, it's not as if that suddenly changes. So we've got to change from the inside. And the way I did it is I decided I was going to change from the inside while I was at my office and then make a decision about, do I want to stay here? Because when I changed from the inside, yeah, everything was great. Actually, I had great time management. Everything was going really well. But did I really feel called to be there, or did I feel called to be in a full-time coaching business? And that's where I felt called to be. So I needed to do the work on myself. And yeah, it was work to break down all of those subconscious beliefs because it's a safety issue, the money, right? My brain was like, oh my gosh, there's so much safety involved in being in this job. And I had to create safety for myself mentally using my prefrontal cortex so that I could leave my job. And speaking of leaving jobs, I want to introduce you to my client, Aman. Aman and I talked in episode 158, if you want to go listen to that episode. And she actually came to me and she was feeling like she wanted change. She wanted to create a business, but she wasn't taking any action. She was super indecisive. The negativity bias was strong, right? And she didn't want to take action. She was scared about what people would think about her if she started a business. She was scared about, financially, was that a good idea for her? Time wise, was that a good idea for her? And so she really came to me because she wanted to start a business and she was undecided. And we really talked about how to make a decision, what it meant to make a decision, and how to overcome that negativity bias so that she could take action on the business she wanted to create it. And she recently just shared on social media that she left her legal job of 12 years so that she could pursue a business full time. I think that's amazing. And of her family too. So it's like, it's just this amazing catalyst when you start coaching, like what becomes possible. She went from being scared to even make the decision to start a business to now leaving her job. Like it really is possible. I'm not a special snowflake, neither is Almond. If that's what you want, I'm not saying that's what you want. But what I want to share with you is the impossible can be made possible, whether it's time management, whatever it is you're looking at, getting more organized in your practice, hiring amazing employees, creating systems in your practice that help make your life easier, working 4 days a week instead of 6 days a week, working remotely part-time. Like all of these things are possible, but you just got to know that they're possible and that you then take action on them instead of being indecisive on them. And so, anyway, what we talked about in this podcast, and I want to share with you here, is really one thing she said, which is she had anxiety or this stress and overwhelmed about the week ahead. And she hadn't really come to me for coaching around her job, but I pulled it out because I could see it. And the way we do one thing is the way we do everything. So we've got to uncover everything subconsciously. So in our session, she started to like notice that she left the session feeling totally different about her week, right? She wasn't so stressed out, she wasn't overwhelmed, and that was mind-blowing to her. And she just didn't really think coaching could have such an impact on her law practice. And it just was completely life-changing that just your thoughts can have impacts in all your areas and that coaching could help. And one of the things we would coach on is like when she would go into a meeting with the other partners, right? So her partners, they'd all be together and she'd be a little nervous about it, right? And she had a lot of thoughts and we pulled those thoughts out, we cleaned them up and we just gave them light and we started to like inform her brain of all of the amazingness that could be possible within this partner meeting. How did she want to really move forward in it mentally? And so that's why we got that prefrontal workout and we got her into those meetings and she felt so much better. So anything that you're struggling with in your practice, coaching can help with that. And I'm going to share with you Andrea. Andrea and I have been working together for almost a year. And she said, my favorite part of coaching is the accountability and having someone to bounce ideas off. If someone were to tell me, just start now, you think you don't have time, but doing this will suddenly create the time, I would have started sooner. And this is something I hear so many lawyers tell me is that they just wish they knew, oh, I do have time for this because you're actually going to show me how to make time. And Andrea and I have worked on a lot now. We've worked not only on time management in terms of the calendar, but we're working on the structural organization of how she's built her business and how she wants to build her business moving forward. So once you get your time in order, so much becomes possible because you're able to focus your attention so much better on working on your business instead of just in your business. Working on your business opens things up in ways you might never have dreamed of. Life becomes so much easier. And you get to think about, okay, do I like the way my rates are scheduled right now? Am I even billing my true rate or am I cheating myself? I think it was Andrea I was talking to, and she was discounting her rates, right? She wasn't even thinking about it. It was totally subconscious, but she was thinking, oh, they can't afford that. Like, wait a minute, but they're coming to you and you're giving them the choice of, hey, this is my rate. And they could say no if they wanted to, or they could ask for a discount, but you're discounting for them even before they ask. So the subconscious is so powerful, it can have us discounting our rates. Just know that this is what might be happening if that's something you're struggling with in your practice. Okay, so you've heard so many stories, but I want to share with you what it really is like in a one-on-one session with me, what my one-on-one coaching package looks like. And there's a lot that's included in this. So you get the one-on-one sessions with me, right? Plus you get bonuses as they come out. I'm going to share those with you. And also, if you own a business, I have another extra bonus that comes when you do the one-on-one sessions. You get this whether or not you own a business or not, or if you want to build a business outside your law practice, you're going to get this too. But it's my business strategy calls that I do every single month. So let's dive in. So here's how I have designed my one-on-one program. For 6 months, we work together. And if you want to continue working with me, beautiful. 90% of my clients sign up for multiple rounds with me and they continue getting better and better results. Because once you get your time straightened out, then the results just compound and you can focus on other things in your practice. But I'm just focused on you and your practice 100%. And I can do this because I don't take on unlimited one-on-one clients. That's not the life I want to lead. And I want to be able to focus my attention on you, your problems in your practice, what you want. I want to make your life easier. And the way I do that is by focusing my attention on a limited number of one-on-one clients. The first session that we do is a 90-minute kickoff session. So what we do during that 90-minute kickoff session is we outline exactly what you want to create within that 6 months. And then we pull out of you your current subconscious mindset that's keeping you where you are. And then you and I work on discovering the mindset that's required to create the change you want to create, which means creating the results that you want to create within that 6-month period. And then we get to work shifting your mindset in each one of our sessions. And I like to think about this as like peeling back the layers of an onion, because our subconscious, it's going to peel back one layer, you're going to see one thing. You peel back another layer, you're going to see something else. Same thing as you manage your time one week, you're going to pull back another layer and you're going to see something else you didn't know was there. And you want to address that now. And so every single week, we're addressing these layers. And then also what we do in our 90-minute kickoff session is we start going through the obstacles and the strategies. And the way I like to think about this is getting a visual of what your subconscious is going to do and what you want your prefrontal cortex to do. So we're going to get like eyes on exactly what both parts of our brain are thinking, so we have awareness. So for instance, let's say let's say you want to manage your time, right? You want to stop feeling overwhelmed. You want to feel more calm. You want to feel more prepared in meetings. You want to, hit your deadlines on time. You want your practice to feel super organized and clean. So there's certain obstacles that are going to show up. They're going to be your old habits. Okay. So we want to pull up all your old habits. One is, I'm not going to feel like doing my calendar, right? My brain is going to tell me I don't want to, right? That's the subconscious thought. I don't want to, because why? It wants pleasure. It wants to feel comfort. It wants to preserve energy, right? And then the strategy, we create the strategy for that. And that's going to be individual to the person, right? Same thing, like another obstacle that can show up might be, I have the refrigerator. I get up and I like to walk to the refrigerator and grab something to eat before, and then I don't do work and then I procrastinate and then I pull out my phone. Those are all obstacles. We want to get you aware of all of your obstacles. And then you and I create strategies for each and every one of them based upon you and your brain. This is going to help you bring awareness to what's going on. It's going to help you start to break those old patterns because you now see those old patterns and you see them for what they are. And then from there, this is where we're just doing one-on-one sessions, right? We're peeling back the layer every single time. We work together to face each obstacle. You start to understand what your brain's current subconscious block is to overcoming that obstacle, and then you just knock them down one by one. Boom, boom, boom. That's why this is so much faster than when you try to do this on your own. I tried to do it on my own for a long time, and I felt horrible. I spent years in just feeling horrible, and I didn't know anything about coaching. I had no clue that I could feel better. So I don't go back and blame myself for that, but I look at it and I say, wow, wouldn't it have been great if I had these tools back then? Wouldn't it have been great if I had had a coach back then to help me through this? Because once I got a coach, things started happening much faster for me. I started to really take action on my dreams. I started to really move forward on them. And I would not be where I am today without the help of a coach, period. So we talk about things like time management, leadership, trial prep, systems and streamlining, procrastination, business building, marketing, imposter syndrome, right? That would come up for me a lot when I first started, scarcity, self-doubt, indecision, failures, and so much more. And we get the opportunity to do this every single week. And we celebrate, because celebrating is, I think, the most important thing. I never celebrated until I started working with a coach. I never celebrated. I was always, okay, next, okay, next, okay, next. Nothing was ever enough for me. I was never happy. I was never satisfied. I was never pleased with myself. I never felt proud of myself. It wasn't until I started celebrating my accomplishments that I started feeling proud of myself. And that had a domino effect. The more we acknowledge ourselves, the better we feel because we're giving ourselves a dopamine hit. We're giving ourselves self-validation. So often we're looking outside of ourselves for self-validation or for validation. We want to be able to give it to ourselves so we can propel ourselves. The more our brain gets used to creating dopamine hits in this way, the more progress it wants to see, right? Remember the motivational triad. If you're getting pleasure out of something, you want to keep going. So the brain needs to see where the pleasure is, and that's why we celebrate. So here's some of the bonuses and perks that you get. You get between session access to me via email and Voxer. If you're not familiar with Voxer, it is a free voicemail text messaging app. You can schedule calls as needed between sessions when you want extra support. So let's say you have a session on Mondays, usually if you find out, okay, Wednesday morning, you're like, oh my gosh, I just got this bombshell news about something. I really need a coaching session. Can we do that? You can use one of your coaching sessions on Wednesday. We'll set something up. Like that's something I really want to be able to offer to you is so that you're able to manage your mind in the way you need to perform at your very best levels. And also something I want to tell you is that, sometimes, let's say you have a session on Sunday, because I offer sessions on Sunday right now. If you have a session on Sunday and you decide, oh, I want to take a long weekend, I can't be there on Sunday, then you can say, hey, can we skip this session? And I will add it onto your package. Like, that's not a problem. Like, I want you to take time off. I want you to be with friends and family. And I know that so often as lawyers, we don't take the time to do that. So I'm not like, no, you're going to lose a session. It's like, no, I want you to enjoy your life. We'll add it on. You can reschedule for later in the week, whatever you want to do. And I offer bonus trainings via email when you first join. So it helps reinforce some of what you're learning in those one-on-one sessions. And I have more bonuses. And I think you're really going to enjoy this if you love the business side of things. This is something that I wish I had had. Just like something that would be given to me once a month to work on, something to think about that I could apply to my practice versus just kind of have this information. Because I want you to apply what I give to you. And so when my one-on-one clients are going through this, it's really great because they can say, oh, I went to that training on hiring and I'm looking to hire a new associate. Can you help me really outline what you're talking about in the class? And I say, of course. And so we work through their hiring process. Or if you're looking at creating SOPs, same thing. It's like, okay, I have a training in there on creating stellar SOPs. And I don't like calling them just SOPs. It sounds super boring. So they're stellar. And so we go through and we create SOPs for them, in those areas so that they're doing repetitious work. We can make it really easy. We can simplify, and then hopefully they can just delegate it. So you get a lot of bonuses in here, and I'll walk you through them. So each month I hold a group call devoted to giving you strategies to help you grow your business without overwhelm. I am not about stress. I'm not about overwhelm. I'm about calming your practice down. That is my work in this world for myself, is creating more peace in my life, creating so much space and calm. And I want to be able to help you do the same thing because it is 100% possible. I did it for the last couple of years as a lawyer. I was able to slow things way down in my mind, and that helped me really take control of my practice and feel really empowered in my practice. And I did things different than other people. And they wondered how the heck I did all of the things that I did. But it was because I managed my mind and I did what I'm sharing here with you. So every single month you get one call. And during that call, you get an additional section of that call where you can get more coaching, you can get answers to your questions to help you strategize solutions to common issues that come up, that kind of thing. And you get access to all the past calls that I've done. And it's in this beautifully designed library that is, this whole thing is really designed to help you and your practice thrive. I've got multiple calls in there from everything from marketing to money mindset to what else? We've got the SOPs and the hiring processes, and there's a bunch of other calls in there. And every month I'm adding into this library, and you get to be a part of that. But I have a brand new bonus. And you are the very first to know about this. I haven't even told my clients about it. I'm super excited about it because it's really going to help you gain the focus that you need. Like it, and I don't know about you, but it can be a struggle sometimes to think big picture about your practice, to really find that time to work on your business instead of just in your business. And so that's why I've created the focus hour. It's a monthly 60-minute session that you put on your calendar with me and other lawyers to focus on what's most important on your practice. Just once a month, like even if you got 1 hour a month working on your practice, doing the SOPs, doing the hiring process, doing the outline of your marketing plan, like doing that thing, right? That thing that maybe you've been thinking about and you haven't been doing. Like we want to get you actually taking action on that. And sometimes putting it on the calendar is the absolute best way to do it, right? Well, it always has to be on your calendar or it's not going to get done. But then having people there to hold yourself accountable to, right? Just to be like, oh, I know that this is happening. I'm going to show up and I'm going to do my work. I'm going to get it done. You could be doing your billing, right? You could get your billing done during that hour. Whatever it is you need to do, this is your hour to get it done. And at the beginning of each session, we're going to set an intention. And then we're going to finish strong by celebrating what we accomplished together. We're going to tie it up by really celebrating. We want to show the brain that dopamine hit. We want to encourage it to take that action. And so that's why I created the focus hour. And I'm really excited to get to bring that to you. So if what I'm saying today is resonating with you, if you're really enjoying it, if you're like saying, yeah, you're nodding your head throughout this, I want to invite you to book a strategy session with me. And I want to give you a special treat for deciding to take action on your dreams. So if you book a strategy session with me, whether you're watching the replay of this or you're watching with me right now, you're live, I want to give this to you. Now, the title is deceiving. It's called 22 Essential Questions to Grow Your Law Practice. Because when I created it, it was for business owners. But I was reading through it the other day and I noticed it's actually not just for business owners, it's for everybody. It's about gaining clarity on what you want, why you want it, why you're not taking action, really taking some of that subconscious that we've been talking today and bringing it up. We want it to bubble up. You want to be able to see your subconscious patterns, your habits, why you're doing what you're doing. So whether or not you have a business or not, I really want you to have this. If you book a strategy session with me, you're going to get it free, whether or not you decide you want to work with me or not. And I want to share with you a little bit about what happens during a strategy session. So it's not a pressure call because I don't like those calls. Like I actually avoid a lot of calls when somebody asks me to do like a consult or a strategy session. I kind of avoid them. But I don't want you to avoid this. I want to make this as easy as possible for you if you feel the same way I have felt in the past. What we're doing is we're really getting to know each other. And I'm asking you questions. And because decisions dictate the results we get in our life, I ask you questions to begin understanding how you make decisions in your life and your law practice. Now, decisions are really going to uncover your patterns, right? The patterns are created by your subconscious. So when I say decisions, I'm looking to find out how your subconscious works, what your day-to-day decision making looks like that have created the results that you have right now. And that's something you can also begin observing in yourself. So when we talk, I'm going to pull out these observations and I'm going to share them with you. I'm going to show you, here's what I'm seeing in terms of your subconscious patterns. And this is why you're having difficulty getting the result that you want. And then if you want to work with me at that point, then I can craft a specific plan to really help specify exactly how we would work together, what exactly we would be working together in terms of, let's say it's a time management thing. We would kind of break that down and how that would look like for you. Now, here's some things I want you to know about our call. And this is really It goes for the strategy session and it goes for our one-on-one sessions. Okay, I'm on your side. Okay, this is a totally judgment-free zone. I have been where you are, so there is no judgment here. I'm here to help you. I want to support you. And what you say stays between us. Everything that you have heard me talk about in this open house has either been said openly in a podcast or in a testimonial that has been video recorded, right? So everything you have heard me talk about, it's all there, right? I have been given permission. So what you and I talk about, it stays between us. And if you want me to talk about it or you want to come on the podcast because you just feel like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, then we'll share your story. But I want you to know that I'm not going to just share your private stuff. Okay. It's not an attorney client relationship because it's not like I'm an attorney and you're the client of an attorney. I'm a coach. And so, but I do take it very seriously because I was an attorney for so long and I know what it's like not feeling like I could talk to somebody because I was afraid of what they would think of me or I was afraid that it would somehow get to somebody. And I don't want that to be something that blocks you from getting the help you need. And if you like these QR codes and you want to use your QR code to take a picture of this briefly so that you could book a strategy session, you are welcome to. Okay, so this is what you're going to get when you get to the page. You're going to see this book a strategy session button. And then when you click on it, it's going to take you down to my calendar. Make sure you've got your time zone correct. Hit continue. And when you hit continue, you'll pick a date and then you'll pick a time. And then when you click on the time, just double check your time zone. I always like to double check and then hit continue. And then you're going to enter your information. So you can put in your email, you'll confirm your email, and put in open house in your note. So whether you've showed up live here today or if you're watching the replay, type in open house so I know you came to the open house. And then I will send you that bonus that I talked to you about. And then scroll down. So you notice here on the right-hand side, there's a bar. You have to scroll down and then hit done. And once you hit done, you're going to get this little pop-up that says your booking is confirmed. And then go to your email. You'll see that your booking was confirmed. And then you'll scroll down and it will give you like the options. It'll give you the link, but you scroll down further, it'll give you options to add to your calendar too. And then I'm going to send out this special bonus to you in a separate email after you've booked the strategy session. So don't worry, I got you covered. Okay, so now I want to talk to you about some common questions I get and some common patterns I see. And if you have questions, feel free to pop them into the Q&A. I'll check them after I've closed this out because I can't open the Q&A right now. But I want to just go through a few things that I have heard. And the reason I say they're common questions / patterns is, you've probably guessed it, because the thoughts we have the most are based our habits, right? If we have these same thoughts over and over and over again, we believe them to be true. The reason that we have repeated, well, when we repeat something over and over and over again, it becomes a habit of thinking. And so that habit of thinking creates a pattern. You're doing the same things over and over again. And so I'm going to point out some common questions / patterns. And if they apply to you, I just want you to just kind of notice what's happening. But if you have a question, like pop it into the Q&A, and I will do my best to answer it. Okay, sometimes I'll get lawyers who ask me, is this the right time? And just so you know, there is no such thing as the right time. I have found this so many times in my life. I remember I took, I wanted to do yoga teacher training when I was a lawyer. This must have been like 10 years ago. It was like 12 years ago. Anyway, the yoga teacher training had crazy hours. It was like 3 to 4 hours per night, starting at 6 o'clock. And then it would be all weekend, Saturday and Sunday. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, am I crazy? I'm working full time as a lawyer. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not sure if this thing or that thing's going to happen. Like, how can I take this on? But I took it on. I took it on because I really knew that this was something that was going to help me evolve. And that's always been what I've always been about, is what's going to take me to my next level. How am I going to evolve? what is going to help make change in my life. And I know why they made it so intense. It was because they wanted to purposely challenge us and push us to our limits. But I did it, and I was really happy that I did it. But there was no right time for that. There was no right time financially for that. I don't remember how much money I dropped on it, but it was not an easy drop to make. And then I also spent an enormous amount of time there. But the number of friends I made from that, the connections I made from that, the feelings I got, the awarenesses I got in myself, coaching is the only thing other than that. And coaching takes so much less time than that yoga teacher training, right? So is this the right time? That's our negativity bias saying like, I don't know, is this the right time? And it's just going back and forth. And that question keeps us in paralysis. It keeps us from taking action. So I want to share with you Amen, because remember, I don't know if you remember, but I was telling you she wasn't sure if it was the right time for her to start a business. Should she start a business? What kind of business should she start? But that pattern started even when we were in the strategy session together. So, in the strategy session, and we talked about this in the episode 158, in the strategy session, she actually said, I'm not sure if this is the right time to do this. And I said, okay, well, when is the right time? Right? She said, oh, like she didn't even realize what her brain was doing, but her unconscious pattern to keep her safe, to keep her comfortable in her comfort zone, her brain would say, I don't know if this is the right time. And so if she had done that, if she had stayed in that pattern in the strategy session and she hadn't taken that leap, right, using her prefrontal cortex, like just that moment to just say, yes, I'm going to say yes to coaching, then she would never have been in the position where she could make the choice to take action on her business. That subconscious pattern could have prevented her from moving forward. So I don't want to see that happen to you if you're noticing this come up for you. Or maybe you see it come up in other areas of your life where you're not sure if now is the right time. You're not sure that this is something that you should do. Just to notice, is that something that's showing up in your life every day? Is it showing up every week? What is it costing you to hold on to that? Because it would have cost Almond her dreams. It would have cost her building a business. It would have cost her feeling better in her practice. It's something that is something to think about. And it's something I'm always looking for if my brain says the same thing to me. I don't know if I have time for this right now. So this is something that I know can be, I know this was a big thing for me when I was first hiring my coach because I was really concerned, like, okay, I'm a lawyer. I don't know when a hearing's going to come up. I don't know when a judge is going to call me into court. I have no clue what's going to happen in my schedule. And here's the thing. I had a certain amount of a clue of what was going on in my schedule. I just couldn't predict everything, and that was okay. I actually account for that in my sessions. So let's say it's Monday morning and you and I usually have our sessions at, let's say, at 2:00, for instance. And Monday morning, you find out, oh my gosh, 1:00 today, I have a hearing. I didn't even know, or, I just got this information from a client right now. All you got to do is message me, right? You email me, Voxer me, and say, hey, this afternoon, I have a hearing. I'm so sorry. You don't even have to say I'm so sorry. Just say, this afternoon, I have a hearing. I can't make our session today. Um, okay, not a problem. Like, I don't have a problem with that. We'll just do the next Monday, or you can reschedule for later in the week. Like, it's not a problem. So just notice if that's a thought that you have, it's not a problem, it's taken care of. And it's just part of negativity bias, our brain always saying like, I don't know, this shouldn't be something I need to do, right? Or is there something I need to be doing? It's just an indecision caused by negativity bias. And I also want to remind you of Andrea, because one of the things that she said was that, you think you don't have time, but doing this will suddenly create time. And if I'd known that, I would have started sooner. She said, just start now. So I just want to just show you like what our brain does subconsciously, and it can sabotage us. It can really prevent us from taking action on what we want and prevent us from really creating the life we're meant to have. Or I'm not sure I can do this. I hear this sometimes because And I've had this doubt too. It's like, oh my gosh, well, I haven't done it in the past. So how could I possibly do it in the future? Right. And that past focus, that's something also, I didn't really talk about that in this session. There's so much to talk about. There's just no way I could do it or we would be here all day long. But past focus really prevents us from doing what it is we're meant to do. Past focus is another mechanism of the subconscious brain. It continues to focus this there over and over again. But what happens is if we are focused there, it is then preventing us from taking action, which is keeping us safe, it's keeping us comfortable, it's preventing us from losing energy. So that's what the subconscious brain is concerned about. And so if it keeps us in indecision, right? It keeps us thinking, oh, I don't know. I don't know what I can do it. I can't do it, right? It's always going to be aiming towards negativity. That's just the way our subconscious works. It's a protective mechanism. If we follow that, we will never change, right? Ever. It just doesn't work that way. You cannot change if you believe what has been happening in the past is predictive of your future. If I had taken everything that had happened to me for 15 years and said, well, I've always been a lawyer, I could never be a coach, I wouldn't have spent the last couple of years as a full-time coach. So I just want you to know like that following that past focus is not beneficial. And we've got to break past that. And I want to share with you Jackie, who broke past that. So she came and she never thought she could be a partner. She thought it's impossible. There's no way they're ever going to, promote me. Like, here's this reason why they're not going to promote me. And here's another reason. And here's another reason. And here's another reason. And this thing happened in the past, right? She had all the reasons why she couldn't do it. Well, guess what? We worked on her subconscious. We worked on creating time management. We worked on really becoming focused on serving her client, which was her boss, to the highest level possible, not in a way where she's spending more time or she's toiling or she's doing all these things, but doing the things they expect you to do, like billing on time, billing the number of hours that they require of you, and doing it in a way that makes sense for their clients so their clients aren't complaining about the bills, right? And doing things above and beyond sometimes, like showing an interest in trial, those kinds of things. She made partner, right? She had all these stories that said, no, there's no way I can be partner. And guess what? Now she's partner. So don't listen to your brain. The brain lies. It's this, the subconscious wants to protect you, but it's preventing you from living out your dreams. It's preventing you from taking action and creating the life and the practice that you want. So I just want to show you that. Okay, so just a reminder, just to kind of bring it all back together. The subconscious, it's literally below awareness. It's stuff we can't even see. And the way we see the subconscious at work is by observing our patterns of behavior. So if you have any questions, let me know in the Q&A. We are going to wrap up soon. If you haven't signed up for a strategy session, go to dinacataldo.com/strategy session. Sign up for that strategy session. Make sure you put in the note open house, and then I will send you that lovely PDF that I showed you. All right. So I'm not seeing any questions in the Q&A, so I'm assuming that I have answered all of them. This was really thorough, so I'm not surprised that I don't see any questions. And if you want to know exactly how we would work together, what your package would look like, if you want to have some insights into what your subconscious is doing, book a strategy session with me and we're going to talk about all the things. In fact, I'll talk to people and they don't realize how in-depth it is. I think it was Shannon, she said in the podcast, she said something to the effect of, I didn't even know what we were going to talk about. It was either Shannon, I don't remember who it was. I didn't even know what we were going to talk about. It seemed like, wow, what are we going to talk about for an hour? But there's so much to talk about because you're really going to learn about yourself. You're really going to learn about what subconscious habits are and patterns that are really preventing you from having what you want. And then if you decide you want to work with me, then we will talk about taking the next step and what that looks like. But right now is all about you making a decision about booking a strategy session. And when we talk, you and I will get to talk about anything else that's on your mind. So I want to thank you so much for being a part of this. I really enjoyed putting this open house together, getting to share some of the stories that of lawyers that I've had the opportunity to work with and be a small part of their story and their successes. And I hope that I get to be a part of your successes in the future. So, thanks again. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day, and I will talk to you in a strategy session. Bye.